Alicia Purdy, you're back.
Thank you for having me back, Matt.
God bless you, woman. I did not know we were going to be seeing each other again this quickly, which is awesome. You and I chatted a couple of weeks ago. For people that are interested in that conversation, they can go check it out. But we're here today talking specifically about the Lewis and Clark incident in West Ada.
Yeah.
You have been an educator for over 2 decades. You are deeply invested in this community. You participate on all kinds of levels. This is one hell of a situation that we find ourselves in. One that frankly is not good for kids in the least. It's not good. Like if you're a Lewis and Clark student right now, this is not good for you. We saw Renaissance High School walk out. This is not good for them. I mean, as I was telling you before, like we are 6 weeks away from the AP test. Renaissance High School is the flagship academic school for West Ada School District. And here you have the kids preparing for AP tests in 6 weeks that are walking out of instruction and study time. Like this is bad for everyone if you're a student. Talk to me about how you see us getting to this position and what just hit me with the whole thing.
Before I get started, I do want to disclose that I'm not here to represent the union or any other entity. I am here as myself, as a concerned parent, grandparent of West Ada students, and as an educator, because it does give me some insight. And this is dividing our community, and we do not need to have our community divided. That has been happening far too often. And one thing that has really bothered me about this situation is that I understand that people are upset, rightfully so. I mean, I firmly understand this concern, but we need to channel it appropriately. Having your student go and bully a school official's kid, not appropriate. Calling up a school official or sending them threatening emails, threatening their lives. That's not how we behave as a community. That's not a civilized society. Martin Luther King said, "We adopt the means of nonviolence because our end is a community at peace with itself." And we need a peaceful community. Take your righteous indignation and take it to the polls, especially in May when all the stakes are so incredibly high. We had a 24% turnout in Idaho at the primary in May. That's less than a quarter of our registered voters. How pathetic is that? We need to become engaged in our communities, and we do that by voting.
And if I may add something, did you just hear it? What was that?
That was my phone. I apologize.
No, it's great. Even before May, this coming fall, we have school board elections.
Yeah.
Like people should participate and understand that it's like these policies that we're talking about today, these were made by the school board. If we do not like collectively as community what our school boards are doing, we need to show up. You need to run. You need to find somebody to run. You need to convince the community that what has been happening is not in the best interest of the community. Like we have mechanisms of participation, but if we only show up when there's a problem, then we're never going to get the best situation for us 365 days of the year.
Absolutely. And honestly, we are working on a May Matters campaign because we have got to get our public, our registered voters, and register voters, people that are not actively participating right now. Let's get everybody involved because every voice matters. And this is how we make changes within our communities. So getting those people to the polls.
Amen to that.
That's where we make the change.
Yeah.
Because this is a long game. This is not going to be fixed overnight if we keep going with the status quo.
Okay. So first steps, stop bullying kids. Okay. Second, stop threatening people that work in the school district. To
Absolutely.
Be very specific.
It's not going to fix anything.
It's not going to fix anything because in reality, the district employees didn't even make the policy. So they can quit, they can leave, the policy will stand, and the next person who's hired in that position will have to uphold that policy or leave the school district as well. Like bullying the people, berating them, bullying their children, this is wrong roundly.
It's not going to accomplish what we want to accomplish. And what we want to accomplish is change. We want all of our children to feel welcome. I personally have high stakes in this. My child is biracial. And when we moved here 23 years ago, she looked around and said, "Mommy, where are all the brown people?" She didn't understand that how isolated this community could be for her at that time. And her own sibling, step sibling, looked at her and said, your skin is brown like poop. Now, while I addressed that in our home, a lot of families don't even know if their children are saying these kinds of things. So she goes to school and she's one of only a handful of colored students, people of color. How is she supposed to feel? Does she feel welcomed? And then she goes on. So I'm looking, and she went to Lewis and Clark Middle School of all places. So it hurt my heart to think that she might not feel welcomed in her own school. But then I turn around and I see she had graduated from Renaissance High School because she was some of the cream of the crop from Idaho. She's one of those excellent students who graduated with her associate's degree before she even graduated with her high school diploma. And I see these students that are so intellectually savvy, and they are so smart. And here they are using their voice. And that's what I would love to see. It's often difficult for teachers to express our First Amendment rights in the educational environment because Tinker v. Des Moines says, if it's going to disrupt the educational environment, then that can be excluded. But students have a lot more leverage. And if we encouraged our students to start taking up the cause like Renaissance did, maybe not walking out. That was a statement, and I appreciate that civic statement. But maybe having a club that's inclusive of all students, welcoming everyone is welcome here. Let the students do that. We've got House Bill 41 that's sitting on the governor's desk right now, and it is basically what I believe the school board and the West Ada School District is looking at when they had the 401.2, which basically also says, we can control.
I don't mind that so much, but it's the same sound that the cameras make when the memory cards are full. So I keep flinching to look over at the camera.
I am so sorry. I should have muted that.
You're good. You're good. Okay. So again, you were saying House Bill 41 is pretty much what West Ada has.
It's very similar. It is saying that they can control. There will be very limited allowances for what banners and flags are allowed in the classroom and in the school environment. I understand not wanting to politicize things, but there are going to be, I don't see how this is political personally. I don't see welcoming all students of all skin tones to be political. To me, research has shown that when students feel that they have a sense of belonging, they achieve more academically. They're more successful. And so this is not a distraction from education. This is enhancing education. And we want to make sure that all of our students feel like they belong.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Okay. Let's start to parse this out. Okay. You feel that the removal of the poster was wrong. I probably could. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's essentially what you're saying is hey, this doesn't pass muster with, this is a political statement. So at least on the grounds that it's not a political statement, it should not have been removed. Is that roughly accurate?
That is my opinion. I'm going to just real quickly.
Yeah.
I brought my phone for a reason, not for it to keep dinging during our.
And by the way, this is not a point of contention between us. I'm not saying you're wrong or anything like that. The question I had is, okay, should the goal of removing political stuff is that policy of let's take out things that don't relate to education? Because I think what is happening is we need to parse out the action from the policy and not conflate the two. You can like the policy and think that this was a missed action. You can hate the action and you can hate the policy, right? You can do all of these things, but it's what is it in particular? Was it a miss of action or was it a miss policy?
I would say the application is. I don't like the application of the policy because Marcus Myers came and said, this actually coincides with our curriculum regarding positive behavior supports.
Yes.
And so therefore it is tied to the curriculum. So it does not violate policy under those constraints.
Got it. So,
and the policy, just real quickly, it says, staff shall not use school property, including the classroom, conference room, office, desk area, to hang, post, erect, or display any posters, signs, flags, banners, pictures, or other digital or physical image that depicts support or opposition relating to political, quasi-political or controversial topic. But then they go on to say that the district defines a controversial topic as one that a professional educator could reasonably understand to have students on more than one side of said issue. How is welcoming every student dividing our students?
Well, again, and again, I'm not defending any action West State has taken. What Marcus did say is welcoming everyone, the text of welcoming everyone was not something that he felt was a problem on the poster.
Right.
Right. So when people say, how is welcoming everyone a political statement, the district was saying very clearly, that's not the thing we had the problem with. And in fact, I asked him very clearly, kind of an unfair question, because he was only one of many people that were involved in the decision. It's not like Marcus Myers individually decided what to do.
I agree.
And so again, I unfairly asked him, hey, as you see it, what if it was a black background with just everyone is welcome here in white? Would that be a problem? And he said, no, he didn't think it would be. So again, it was not the words that became a political commentary. It seems that everything around the words was the thing that West Ada had an issue with.
The problem here, though, is our students are not just black and white learners. We have different modalities of learning. And one of our greatest modalities is visual learning. Having that visual of the different skin tones, including white skin tone, that's important because it relates to those students can see that representation matters. Little girls, when they see a woman that's achieving great things, that's going off into space, they say, oh, I can do that because she can do that. If we see an athlete that is of color, our young children are going, hey, I could aspire to this as well. Representation matters, and it matters in the classroom as well. So when my little girl comes and says, you know, my step-sibling said my skin is brown like poop, they see the difference in skin tones, so why are we not addressing that? Especially if it's going to affect how they learn, how they are being treated within the classroom, because a lot of times teachers don't hear these little comments that are made by children. Children can be cruel. They can.
Oh, they're the worst. They're the worst. They talk so much trash.
They learn it from somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. I want to dive down this particular line of thought. Could we, right before we go there though? So again, in so many words, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, this action is not something you're like, yeah, you're 100% on West Ada. Like there are problems with this particular interpretation of the action. And again, like, how about that's just what I'm taking away. I'm not putting words in your mouth. What I want to know before we dive down, how we start doing what you're talking about, which is making sure everybody's welcome. What I would like to know is, do you find that the policy, however poorly or accurately it was represented in this action, do you find the policy to be an issue?
I personally do, but again, if I have an issue, maybe I need to run for school. I mean, the thing is, we've got to have our communities coming together, and our communities saying, hey, this is a concern. And when the community takes up this action, maybe we change who we have elected. I don't know. I'm a single voter.
No, for sure. Sure.
But this is how we make change in the long run. It is not by a single action of, hey, I'm upset about this one single policy. If you don't like something, you make a change. And change happens over time. You take it to the school board. Maybe you suggested you take it up to the Board of Ed, the policy, and say, hey, what are your concerns with this? So that we have a broader view.
Well, okay. So let's do this then. Let's solve this right now. You, Alicia Purdy, being a gangster, super intelligent, you got perspective, you got experience, me being the idiot with a microphone. Let's solve this today. What is the policy that we could put in place to protect people from, let's say, crosses and Bibles in the classroom? Because, I mean, we have legislators. I spoke with Representative Jordan Redmond, who ran a bill to make mandatory the King James Bible in the first, for 5 minutes a day, right?
Oh,
and
again, like of church and state there,
a lot of people were real not happy about that, right? And that they were like, this is crazy. We need to protect people from that, okay? And then we also need to protect people that anytime there's a rainbow, they're really, really upset. Okay, so we have these both of these spectrums, right? We have people that, say, we have people that do not like the idea of seeing a picture of our current president in a classroom, right? And we have people that would love to see that. How do we honor all people and create a classroom where we don't have, right stuff, we don't have left stuff, we don't have conservative, we don't have liberal? What's the policy that we put in place to do that?
Well, I agree with keeping politics out of the classroom. I don't want my students knowing what my political affiliation is. That's not my right to do. But we still do have some rights in the classroom. I mean, even House Bill 41 says that, our personal belongings, we can still represent. Sure. So
you could have T-shirts, you could have a purse, you could have whatever you want.
Maybe I take a picture with my banner and put it on my desk. I mean, there are ways that we can still represent and protect our students. And I think that's important, but I do not see this as being political. And maybe I'm wrong there, because I know there are a lot of people who do see it as political, but I just cannot see a public institution of education open to all students saying, all are welcome here. How is that political? That's beyond me.
Okay. So it sounds like you're saying, hey, look, I actually don't mind removing politics. I just don't see this as it. So it's not, the policy is not like a huge problem for you. It's no. Like, this was too gray of an area, or in some cases, this was absolute black and white. Like, this was absolutely not wrong. And then of course, other people say it's absolutely not right, but the point is, you're saying, hey, look, policy, fine. Maybe I don't love it, but dude, this one, you missed the mark.
I disagree with it. I will also say, I've heard a lot of people saying, well, school is for reading, writing, and arithmetic. We do teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. We teach children, and children come with a whole lot more that they need to learn beyond that. You need to learn how to work in a civilized society and treat others with respect, regardless of skin tone. I mean, right. That's why I see the application of this policy being errant.
I was speaking with somebody recently, and they were saying that at the kindergarten, first grade, and second grade level, there are color representations. Like, there are things other than the 3 R's, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling like blue? Are you feeling purple? Are you feeling green? Are you feeling red? And what this stems from is trying to get young people to be able to self-diagnose and report their emotional state, which is like, green is like, I'm happy, and like red is, I'm really upset. And you start helping them develop the vocabulary and self-awareness of like, hey, what's going on with me right now? And then they can self-report. So again, not the 3 R's, right? But you're dealing with these tiny human beings who aren't saying like, I didn't get a great night's sleep, and I'm just feeling a little edgy, and Brian always rubs me wrong. Can you just keep Brian away from me? Like, they don't know how to say that. They just hit Brian in the head.
Like, yeah, and self-regulation has to be taught. And a lot of their kids are coming into school and they don't have these skills available to them yet. They haven't developed them yet. That's part of what we teach. And it doesn't stop in kindergarten. No. I mean, sometimes we've got kids, they get into fights in high school. We have to teach them appropriate methods for addressing their emotional needs without using their fists. Use your words,
Yeah. I actually remember when I was in elementary school, the school initiated a program that was the weekly agenda. Okay. So I think it was like Thursday or Friday, there would be an agenda list, right, of problems, grievances that people had. It was like Festivus. Like you would air out the rest of us. Yeah, right, exactly. So what they would do is, and I remember this distinctly, everybody would move their desk into a gigantic circle, and the teacher would come up and start reading out the grievances. And the person who made the grievance, because you had to articulate what the problem was, the person would say like, yes, that was my grievance, and it had either been resolved, so indicating that like person to person, you had already fixed it, or we couldn't find a resolution. We didn't have the skill sets, vocabulary, whatever, the principle sets to parse this out. They wouldn't say that because we were in third grade, but that's what that was the idea, right? And then the teacher would problem solve, applying principles, applying, motivations, and attempt to find a resolution for this thing. So they modeled problem solving behavior. Now, is that the 3 R's? No. But you're obviously trying to teach people how to problem solve and resolve issues in complex, large social systems so that they can move on and attempt to do, this said problem solving, not just in the rest of their education, but as people.
Well, I wish we had done this earlier, because have you seen the mess that's on social media? Adults don't know how to implement these skills. How can we expect our students to be able to? And if we can't have students that can self-regulate, it's like herding cats in the classroom. It is impossible to teach that reading, writing, arithmetic if Johnny's over here hitting Billy over the head with his books.
Right. And again, just to back up your point, yeah, we teach the 3 R's, but we're also dealing with humans that are these messy, complex little worlds walking around that are not, they just don't get it yet, right? And it's part, like, you're not going to be able to, as you're saying, you're not going to be able to hit the 3 R's unless you help them. It's like, are you at a red today? Purple? Like, where are you on this chart, man?
Yeah, we do fist of 5. So, hey, I'm a 1. I'm like really not doing great today. Or I'm doing all right. 5, my head's about to explode. Where are you in between there? So,
Head's about to explode, good or bad?
You're like really, you're not having a good day. Leave me alone.
If 1 is I'm okay and 5, like, where's the like, you're like in Matt zone where I'm happy all the time. I'm like, that's like
I'm doing
that's
awesome.
a 0.
I'm doing awesome. Yeah. But if I'm having a really rough day, maybe it's safe to give me a little space. So I'm going to give you a 5. But, sometimes having those ways of being able to relay how you're feeling today, that helps you get control over your emotions and your responses, because those are hard things to grasp. But we've seen it, like I said, our adults don't even know how to articulate their feelings appropriately. So
I had an idea earlier that I kind of mentioned to you, that what if we established a system where this policy is in place, right? So the policy of like, hey, no political stuff. And when there's a dispute, right? So, say administrator, the team of the administrators comes down and they're like, all right, look, teacher, you got to take this thing out. And the teacher's like, you know what, man, I don't agree. I don't agree. And what if at that point it triggers a process that everybody's like, all right, look, we're at an impasse. So
an appeals process.
And this is what we're going to do. This goes straight to the agenda at the next board meeting. We are going to have, you can appear to testify, just like, pass into the bill.
I want to do that.
You can appear to testify, and we will have our elected board members take a position, and they'll give like a green light or a red light. And that way the buck stops with the elected board members. So everyone in the community sees like, okay, they were for it or they were against it. And I can understand that as we move into election season. I can understand that the buck stops with the board now. So we don't have administrators like Marcus Myers, who's getting his life threatened, and his child harassed. But we can bring this to the community and be like, look, at the end of the day, the people that are responsible to you, the constituents, that's the Board of Education. Mm-hmm. And exactly where they stand on this. And we might see a smattering of this, but it's a process by which the community could participate. You could testify, or at least whatever it is. And that way we keep it as transparent as possible. And then people can act accordingly.
Well, and if we don't like the response, we vote differently. That's where we take it. We take it to the polls. Again, those May matters. I cannot emphasize that enough, that we have got to start becoming active participants in our communities. If we don't, we have ourselves to blame. But right now we have an elected school board. We have people that are making these determinations, but they need to hear from us. Maybe they send out a survey. Does this seem political to you? Yes or no? What is your
direct
concern?
Democracy?
I mean,
send out a text message to everyone in the school. It's like, press 1 to approve this poster. Press 2 to not. Press
like
3 to
Bill
hear
93.
Press 3 to hear movie phone. Let's do something like that. Because honestly, what I see here is this complete breakdown of our community, which breaks my heart. You came on, so many educators, administrators, and people have come on the show in the last 60 days, especially around the question of school choice. What are our schools doing? How are they performing? What are the policies? What do people like? The education community got hammered over the last 60 to 90 days. And they've been getting hammered for like the last 7 years. Yes. And again, I am here as just an individual, but I also am on the state PTA. I'm the state PTA legislative rep. Mm-hmm. And just watching it go down, you're like, holy cow. And then to get to this point, after the community got obliterated, just hammered to hell. And now there's this infighting and this pressure. It's like people are cracking and now the whole community is falling apart. It's like, oh my gosh, dude, what a failure. Failure of it's a community thing.
We've got to come back together as a community.
Yes.
And that does not happen by attacking one another. It comes together by coming together and working together to problem solve. Now, I appreciated that there was the offer of some kind of compromise. I didn't see it as a compromise.
These words might mean different things to different people.
Let's have a little conversation here. Let's talk about some other options, like maybe we start having more posters in our schools that do depict the different nationalities and races of all of the students represented in the West Ada School District. That would be inclusive and showing students that, hey, I belong here. And that would help boost our scores better than anything. And West Ada has amazing scores. I really appreciated one of the school board members coming on here and saying, you know, touting how amazing the students in West Ada are doing. But that does not come in a vacuum by only focusing on reading, writing, and arithmetic, as we've previously stated. You are teaching the whole child. And that whole child has to feel like they belong, or they're not going to be invested in their education. That has more of an impact. Research has shown us time and again that has more of an impact than anything that we do in the classroom. If we make the student feel like they belong, if we make them feel welcome, they are going to be more open to learning. And that's one of the things that I feel like is missing in this.
Somebody brought up clubs recently, and I really like the idea of student-led, like, all are welcome here clubs.
Yeah.
Right? Because in the past, I've asked people, not around this situation, but I'm like, do you really think like a poster in the classroom does a lot, or like a flag? And again, I've had these conversations in good faith because I'm really curious. Like, I've been in situations in education where, for instance, I'm a big white looking guy. I'm actually Mexican, but I look white, right? And studying liberal arts at Berkeley, I was not one of the people that anybody wanted to hear from. And more upsetting to the people in the classes, I'm not as much of an idiot as I look, right? So like, I'm fairly competent.
I've never accused you of that, Matt.
Not outwardly. But the point is that I'm in these classes and people would criticize me just because of the way I looked. Because I'm a big white looking guy and I was an athlete and still am. And they did not want to hear, they did not want to spar verbally because, again, we're in a rhetoric course. Like, the whole point of the course is to understand how to argue and parse out discussions, right? And to communicate very effectively. And some would argue I'm rather competent, or at least was at the time. The point is that from that standpoint, you could have put a flag up and said, all are welcome, or a poster up. And it's like, I don't care because Sharon over there just called me like a piece of crap, or like I understand how I'm looked at in this class. This killed me. There was this
just as welcome as everyone else.
There was this gal. Oh my gosh. I actually had a crush on her, which was really funny. She was this little tiny gal in my Italian class, African-American girl, it was like super cute. And she had this like really short hair. And I didn't sit next to her directly, but she was in my Italian class. And I was like, hey, how you doing? Anyway, whatever. The point is, I see her one day out on the quad, and she's advertising this thing for like spoken word and slam poetry, something like that, right? And she was way into it. I was like, oh, hey, what is this? And she's like, oh, it's our spoken word slam poetry thing. And I was like, oh, awesome. And on the poster, it said, women and people of color all welcomed. And I was like, women and people. I was like, so
where do you fit in this?
The white guys. Like, literally, that was literally it. And I'm like, okay, so I don't care what's in the classroom. But this gal's standing out in the quad literally saying everyone is welcome except white males. And I was like, no crush on you anymore. Like, I'm not even but I like knew she thought I was white too, even though I'm Mexican. And it's like, gosh, man, so again,
but if everybody is welcome, that should include you too.
No, but it wasn't that. It was like anybody who's a female or non-white, right? That's it. That was it.
Probably because those are the populations that have been so marginalized for so long.
Whatever the reason was, it was one of those things where it's like, this is not going to be fixed. Again, this is my reflecting on my life. It's like nothing that you put up in the classroom is going to fix the fact that this person is excluding a group that she thinks I'm part of, which I'm not even part of, but she would think I'm part of. And like, she has no problem with it. Now, again, this was 20 years ago, right? So like, we're in a different age. Perhaps people still feel the same. But my point is that I like the idea of, instead of having, perhaps supplemental, but having student run organizations that are student generated things that like have the all are welcome here club. At every school, have them make shirts for fundraisers, have them hold events, have them do these things, because where young people really derive their sense of belonging, either acceptance or non-acceptance, is actually from the students. And if we could offer guidance to young people, or the people that are concerned with this could offer guidance to young people, that would be a really cool thing. That it's like, there you go, that's how you do it.
And it's not exclusionary, because students have the opportunity to express themselves in all sorts of ways.
Right.
We had over at Centennial High School, I'm going to bring it up. They had Turning Point USA, student presented at the freshman orientation. If that's not political, I don't know what is. So if they can do that, we should absolutely have students that feel comfortable saying, hey, everybody is welcome here.
Oh, yeah.
And
I couldn't agree more.
Take control, just like they did at Renaissance High School when they walked out. That was them using their voices.
I love the student clubs. And by the way, I had the head of IFF on twice this legislative session, Ron Nate. And he, at one point in our conversations, criticized the LGBTQ clubs and said that, accused the public school of like grooming people. And I was like, hang on, man. These clubs are student run, right? And his response was, yes, but they need a faculty sponsor. I'm like, okay, I understand that. But they're still student-run clubs. Like, and if I'm not gay, you're not going to like convince me to go like start a club for like, I don't know, maybe it would. It doesn't matter. The point is, it's like, listen, we should have
Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Yes.
Turning Point USA.
Thank you.
If you have the opportunity to do that, we have the opportunity to have this as well.
And I think that's great, because where the real acceptance, at least in my dumb mind and remembering my education, it's like where the real acceptance came was from my peers, or where the real rejection came was from my peers. And do you remember that movie? Come on, it was Eddie Murphy. We're talking 1998. It was the Nutty. Was it the Nutty Professor? It was the one where he was in a fat suit, and Eddie Murphy. You don't remember this?
I've been sheltered.
Oh my gosh. Well, he's supposed to be this morbidly overweight, like brilliant scientist, and he finds a way to unzip a gene or something and become like this skinny Eddie Murphy. And it's Eddie Murphy in both. He's obviously acting in both places, and he feels really rejected by people in the world. And his mom comes up after some family dinner, and she's like, "You are beautiful inside and out." And he's just crestfallen, and he's like, oh, so upset, because again, the adults in the room repeating like, hey, you're accepted. If he doesn't feel that from his peers, it doesn't mean anything to him, right? If he doesn't feel it from the woman he would like to take on a date, which he eventually gets at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, I remember seeing that as like a 16-year-old and thinking what a great representation of the conflict, which is adults want younger people to feel accepted and tolerated. But the problem is not at the adult level. The problem is at the peer level.
Well, I think we have a great hope in our future, because
did we solve this? Did we solve this?
No, we didn't solve anything. Our students will solve this, because they are the voice that they need to hear. You are not wrong there. And I think that having Renaissance students lead that way is going to open the eyes of students across the district to say, hey, we got this. We can take control of this issue.
How cool would it be if there were student-led groups throughout the district who are like, hey, don't even worry about the posters. We got this, right? Or the posters for the clubs, because it's my understanding that you can have clubs advertised across school. If the posters for the clubs, right, this was an accusation against West Ada, that they have all of these LGBTQ flags up in every single hallway. And what it turned out to be was like there was a poster that was advertising the various student clubs, and one of the student clubs is an LGBTQ club. And these accusers are like, they're advertising gay clubs. It's like, they are? Like, what are you talking about? It's like, oh, it's a it's a student-led club, and you're conflating West Ada advertising, LGBT. And it's like, fine. But what if all of a sudden there was like the Everyone is Welcome Here club, and Everyone is Welcome is everywhere throughout the school sites, because it's a student-run club. And they're like, listen, you don't even need to carry this anymore. We got this. We understand what to do. We understand how to integrate this. We have programs set up. We have clubs set up. We have, Everyone is Welcome nights set up. Like, that would be a great solution. And then the teachers would feel like, okay, we don't even have to go to bat for these kids, because they're taking the lead.
We're still going to go to bat for our kids. We will always go to bat for our students.
I just feel bad for the teacher.
I do too, because you know what?
What a horrible situation to be in.
Absolutely. And we need to remember that teacher still has her First Amendment rights as well. So if she wants to wear her T-shirt, I suggest she wear her T-shirt. I'm going to be wearing my T-shirt. We should all be wearing our T-shirt because truthfully, we need to support our students. But I'm glad that they are taking the lead. But as adults, why are we not setting a better example for them? So the way we do that is through the process, through the voting. Make sure that we are stepping up and having our voices heard. And I think that starts with going and talking to the West Ada School District, not screaming, not threatening, but having a sit down and say, how can we resolve this as adults? Because if we're not setting an example of how to conflict resolution, what are our students going to do? Actually, they've already shown us they know how to handle this better than we do.
How do we resolve this, Alicia Purdy? How do we resolve this?
Through conversations and voting and action.
Can we agree it's not to get mad at a guy with a podcast? Can we
I would
agree on that?
absolutely agree to that. The fact
Can we agree that the news should not be getting mad at me and making fun of me, and like people should stop saying mean things about me? I didn't do anything.
Matt, you welcome all perspectives here. You've got me coming on. You've had the school district come on, and that's the thing is we've got to see things from both sides of the aisle and come together and find a way to work together for the betterment of our educational system for our students. Because this isn't about you and me. This is about what's best for our students.
God, amen to that. It's not. People are upset. It's not about me and you. It's literally like, can we just iron this out for our students? I had Dr. Phil Gore in here just before you, and he was so great. And he's the chief learning officer for the Idaho School Boards Association. Mm-hmm. He's written several books, very intelligent guy. And he kept coming back to, he's like, listen, what's the core mission here? What's the core mission? And the core mission should be doing, again, it's wrapped around doing what's best for kids. So what's best for kids in this situation? What helps people pass their AP test? What helps kids at Lewis and Clark get back to school is business as usual? What helps everybody get past this and figure it out? Like what are those things?
Representation does matter. Representation matters. All students do need to feel welcome. And that starts with the students. Yes, but emphasizing that from the teacher's perspective, that's important too. I think there's room for all of it, but we need to have those conversations. And excluding and saying, oh, we just need to focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic. We teach children. We don't just teach this, we teach children.
I really appreciate you. You got hot off a plane and you drove straight here. You were out of town.
I look like a hot mess.
You look great. I don't want to take any more of your time. Is there anything we've missed?
I honestly don't think so. I think we've pretty much hit all the points that I was considering.
Well, again, I so appreciate you coming in here. This is a hot mess. It's a hot mess.
And we've got to fix it.
Right. You didn't make the mess. I certainly didn't make the mess.
You did not.
But look, as a community, we got to figure out a way through. I mean, and it just, again, it just breaks my heart that the education community took it so hard this legislative session, and now we're dealing with this. It's like, come on, man. There's got to be a way that we can work this out as a community and get back to just educating kids.
And making kids know that they are valued, because that is so very important. All students deserve to feel valued.
Alicia Purdy, thank you for what you do for Idaho. Thank you for what you do for the teachers and your students. Please come on again.
Thank you. Anytime, Matt.